Hey guys, okay, so this is going to be a really good one. I have basically put together a massive script writing document. And of course, this is the first lesson of this new module where we're going to be diving deep into script writing, into ads, basically how to make killer ad creatives that are going to actually be able to scale. Now, I think a lot of people get stuck in the hamster wheel of just churning out ads at high volume and they really get nothing that actually hits. And if they do, a lot of the time it's just they've stumbled across a bit of luck. But this is going to give you more of the deeper psychology into how to actually write scripts. And so you can get a deep understanding of all of the different elements that goes into writing a script. And I can pretty much guarantee you, if you watch through all of this video, if you research the lesson document, if you go and actually start implementing what I'm about to teach you, you'll see a big win rate or a big jump in your win rates in the ads that you launch. So I'm not sure how long this is going to be. It is in depth, but we're going to get through it. And I'll attach the lesson document in this video below because actually this will also make a great context file for you to upload into Claude or LLMs when you're actually writing out your scripts. So let's dive straight into it. So the psychology of writing winning ads. So this is basically going to be a high-level overview on how I approach script writing. Now, people have different strategies, of course. I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying this is my way is right or wrong. This is just what works for me. And this is how I've been able to have a very high win rate across all of the brands that I run and I've been able to scale aggressively. Now, most people, as I said, jump into writing scripts without understanding the fundamentals that actually make them work. A lot of the time, they'll just go and rip ads. The issue is, right, this is basically what I see happening. Obviously, the ripping and running, that is a strategy that a lot of people run. But if you get a winning ad, if you rip an ad and you launch it in your ad account and it starts to perform well, if you don't actually understand why the ad worked well, then you're not going to be able to recreate more winning ads. You're just essentially relying on luck. So this is going to give you a better thought process on how to write your scripts, but then also review your scripts as well, or review your winning ads. So in this lesson, so in the next lessons, actually, I'll be sharing how to find winning concepts and how I write scripts live. So we'll do almost like a live demo from scratch. But as I've said here, none of that matters if you don't understand what's in this document first, because concepts and speed mean nothing if the actual fundamentals of the script are broken. So in this lesson, we're going to cover who the script is written for. So that'll be your awareness, sophistication, and your avatar. How winning scripts are structured. So how to write your hooks, your leads, how to build agitation, how to introduce your mechanism. And then also around retention as well, which is a super key metric, which will be your hold rate. And we're going to be diving into what I like to call curiosity loops. And each section builds on the last. It's simple, not overwhelming, but from running this Discord for a long time now, as I've said, I see people making this mistake time and time again. Like they just do not understand how to actually properly write a script. So essentially going to be going through section by section, and yeah, let's dive straight into it. So first thing here is awareness level by concept. So reversing back to the previous lessons that I've done around stages of awareness. If you haven't been through that, go back in and watch that so it's relevant to you. But most understand the theory of awareness levels, which was mainly what that lesson was around. I did show a lot of practical examples in there as well. So I think it's pretty much the best stages of awareness lesson out there. But they fail to actually implement it correctly when it comes to actually writing your ads and launching them in your ad account. Now, before writing any script, I'm always asking myself which awareness level I'm trying to tap into. So depending on what strategy I'm using, whether I am literally just, okay, I know that solution aware ads are working really well in my ad account. I want to tap more into solution aware ads, or maybe I might look at competitors in the market if it's a new product test. I might identify, okay, they're focusing heavily on unaware and problem aware, but there's low hanging fruit in the solution aware market. So you want to have some sort of strategy there where before you actually start writing a script, you know who you're trying to speak to. And even if you're ripping an ad, you still want to understand when you reverse engineer that script, what awareness level are you actually speaking to here? So my rule of thumb is one concept, so one ad creative, should be speaking to one awareness level. Now, this is a screenshot of my creative pipeline workflow. So basically every single time that myself or a team member, one of my creative strategists, adds in a concept idea into our pipeline, we tag it with the awareness level. So each concept gets anchored to one awareness level. And that means, first of all, from a high level overview, when I'm going into the pipeline, I can see, okay, here's the ads that are targeting solution aware, here's the ads that are targeting problem aware, etc., etc. And obviously, when it comes to script writing, that will heavily differ. Your messaging is heavily going to differ depending on the awareness stage that you're actually speaking to. But as I've said here, this doesn't just affect the script, it also directly affects how the video should be edited, which is why all of my editors know the awareness level of the concept before they start editing or sourcing any footage. So if you think about it, obviously my editors are added into this pipeline, and every time they get assigned a script, they're able to see, okay, this is the awareness level. They also understand the different awareness levels, not on a super deep level, but even they don't have to understand it on a deep ass fucking level, but they need to understand the theory behind it. Because when they do come to sourcing footage, taking B-roll, matching, doing the sequencing of footage in the ad, that's going to change, or that's going to affect what that looks like depending on the awareness level. And I've said here, different awareness levels require different pacing, visual B-roll, etc. And if you look at this on a practical example, let's say you're targeting unaware, that's going to be slower pacing, it's going to be longer holds, fewer hard cuts, less editing, and more focused on raw storytelling and education. And that changes throughout each of these awareness levels. So that's the first thing that I do, and something that all of you guys should be doing as well. One concept, one awareness level, and then just stick to that messaging. Now going into multi-awareness strategy, because this is essentially how you scale. So hitting big scale doesn't come from just having a few winning ads. It comes from having ads across all of the different stages of awareness. So think of it like, let's say you could call it a multi-awareness strategy, or you could almost call it, a multi-funnel strategy in regards to you're touching people at all different areas of your funnel. An ad account with a good creative structure mirrors the way that people actually move towards that purchase. So again, talking about funnels, if you think top of funnel down to bottom of funnel, you're going to have people that are coming in from all different sections, which I'll show you in a second. But you're going to have people coming in from that top of funnel, and then they're going to be coming down that funnel. And you need to make sure that you have creatives in your ad account that are going to take them through that journey and essentially build their conviction to eventually make a purchase. So not everyone enters at the same point. Not everyone's coming straight in from like an unaware perspective. Some people just became aware of the problem. They've already tried solutions. Maybe they know your product and they just need a reason to act. And a multi-awareness strategy ensures that you always have active ads that can emotionally meet exactly where they are, regardless of their awareness level. So I made this in Gemini, and yeah, it's not the prettiest, but it'll give you the idea of the concept. So we obviously have everything here. I mean, it's missed out unaware, but let's just say problem unaware would be here. Unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, most aware, purchase. This purchase, again, this can happen at any of these stages. But think of it this way. Let's say that someone comes in on a problem aware ad, and everything else in your ad account is also speaking to a problem aware audience. Now, you've not got any other creatives that are then going to move them to solution aware, move them to product aware, move them to most aware, and then potentially convert them at the end. So they come in here. If you look at this red line, they come in on problem aware, and then they're just going to drop off. They'll maybe get hit with a few other problem aware ads, but then it's really not actually addressing where they are at that point, because now they're solution aware. So they're just going to go cold, and you won't make that conversion. You'll make a few, but it's not going to maximize the profitability in your ad account. Whereas if you have someone here, they've come in at problem aware, they then get taken through this sequence. Again, they could be buying at any stage here, but this is going to maximize the chances of you converting as many of the impressions that you get on your ads, because they're going to come in problem aware ad. Okay, they've not bought yet. There's obviously reasons and objections why they've not bought yet. They then get hit with a solution aware ad. They're in that solution aware stage. They know they've got a problem. They know that there are solutions out there, but they're not convinced on which one is the most effective. Again, they've still not bought. Maybe they have price sensitivity. Maybe there's still limited trust. They then get hit with a product aware ad, and you can see how that continues on. Now, Meta uses AI to scan your creatives to create awareness progression with the prospects that you have. So you can do all of this without actually having to set up dedicated retargeting campaigns. So as soon as you upload your primary text and as soon as you upload your video or your static, Meta's going to scan that. It will dictate, okay, this is speaking to this type of audience, and it will automatically take them through this sequence. So you just need to focus on making good ads. And with a multi-awareness strategy, your ad account will be able to tolerate higher budgets. It'll feel more stable at scale. Again, a lot of people are complaining about the volatility that Meta has. You're never going to be able to completely get rid of that volatility. It's always going to be volatile, but do what you can control, like manage the outputs that you have control over. And having this in place is going to make it as stable as it possibly can be. And of course, it's going to fully optimize your budget and maximize your ROAS. Okay, so that will conclude point number one, which before we even get writing the scripts, super important to have an understanding of this. So again, it's not just understanding the theory, but it's actually understanding how that applies to your scripts that you're writing, and then also how you're deploying everything within your ad account to maximize the efficiency. Now let's move into the lead and agitating the problem properly, which I think is probably one of the areas that a lot of people are making mistakes in. And they are essentially just leaving a lot of money on the table by not understanding this concept, and they're not actually implementing it properly within their scripts. So we're going to do a big deep dive into this section here because it's one of the most important. So a common mistake people make, and obviously, like, I have great context on this because people send me their ads every single day. I review ads. I just have great context on what people are doing within the industry. And again, like, this is a common mistake that I see it so many times when I'm reviewing ads, is jumping the gun by introducing their product without spending enough time agitating and educating the customer on their problem. And, I've said here, most of my big scaler ads don't intro the solution until 40 plus seconds into the ad. Now, of course, that isn't concrete for all of the concepts that I launch. If I'm building out a solution-aware ad, of course, that's not going to apply. But I'm mainly talking about unaware or problem-aware ads here. And really, like, problem-aware ads, I would say, are where most of my top spenders fall into, because it's obviously just like a bigger pool of people versus solution aware. So this is mainly focused on unaware or problem aware. So I'm mainly not introducing the solution until 40 plus seconds into the ad. And this is because it takes time to fully surface your avatar's frustration, their failed attempts, their confusion, their self-blame, and also building trust and, relatability, that they actually feel like you understand the problem and the struggles and the frustration that they're actually going through. You can't build that within 10 to 15 seconds. And I would say when I am reviewing ads, I do see people introducing the product on problem-aware ads 10, 15 seconds into the ad. And then they complain that the ad can't scale, or they struggle to actually find winning ads. Now, once the emotional weight has been built, then the solution is welcomed, versus it being forced in and people instantly have their guard up. Now, you've got to remember that, especially now, people see the most ads that they ever have because there's more advertisers than ever on these paid platforms. So people subconsciously as well will also have ad guards. There'll be certain things that you can say in your hooks and your ads, and straight away it just gives away, okay, they're just trying to hard sell me here. And then the minute that ad guard goes up, they're not going to buy at that point. Whereas if you actually build the emotional weight, you build that trust, you build that curiosity, which we'll get into later on in this video, then when you actually do introduce your product solution mechanism, they actually want to hear it. It's welcomed. And that's how you actually get better converting ads. And not to go off a tangent here, but even CRO, conversion rate optimization. A lot of people think that conversion rate optimization and having a good conversion rate only lives on the website, but it actually starts from the first bit of contact that you have with that prospect. And if you have all of this built into your ads, you could do nothing on your landing page, your offer, etc. And you could have a better conversion rate just because your ads are built in a way to convert people at a higher level. Now we're going to go on to the lead. So this is bridging the hook to the agitation. So let's think you have, let's say this AirPods is the hook. Let's say this bottle of water is when we start going into the agitation. In between this, think of it like a connecting bridge. So like what brings these two together? And that will be your lead. Now, just before we get into the lead, there is a book and it's called Great Leads. I read that probably about 4 years ago now. It's a really good book. It's not too long, but I recommend that you go and read it. It's one of kind of like the best marketing books that I've read. And I think a lot of people, you say a lead to them and they don't understand what it is. They think it's something to do with sales and like actual leads, but no, the lead is almost like your connecting bridge between hook and when you go into the actual main body of the script. So the lead is what follows directly after your hook. A good lead will give the prospect belief that continuing to watch is going to be worth it. So a hook pulls them in. A lead is what gets them to actually stay. Think of your lead like a connecting bridge. Without it, things break and retention collapses. This is why so many struggle with good hook rates in their creatives. This is why so many, I've miswritten this. This is why so many struggle with bad hold rates in their creatives, and it's because their leads are shit. So a lot of people will have really good hook rates, but then they'll be saying that their hold rates are bad. And a lot of the time it's because they have a bad lead. And even just that small minor adjustment can really improve your hold rate. Now, strong leads do one of three things. First one here is it deepens the hook. So it adds a layer of detail, context, or emotion that the hook didn't have room for. The viewer feels like they're getting somewhere, not just being clickbaited. And I think this is, again, a problem that a lot of people have. They have clickbaity hooks, and you do get good metrics on the hook rate or the CTR, but then the ads don't actually convert well. They can also set the frame. So it tells the viewer subconsciously what kind of experience this is going to be, whether that be a story, a confession, a diagnosis. The frame determines how they process everything that follows. And it also earns the right to agitate. So you can't open with someone's deepest insecurities. The lead builds enough empathy or shared experience that the viewer lets you go deep. Without it, deep agitation feels invasive instead of intimate. And essentially people just have their guard up. Now, it's also important to note that the type of lead you write changes based on awareness level. And you're going to see throughout this how the awareness level is going to change a lot of your messaging when you're actually writing scripts. And that's because prospects have a different internal question at each stage that they're at. So I've got some examples to run through with you here. So if we think of a problem-aware audience, their question is typically going to be, do they actually understand what I'm going through? So the lead needs to demonstrate a shared experience. Now, it doesn't have to demonstrate a shared experience. You know, it could go into other things as well, but they need to feel understood. For them to actually go on to trust you with what you're going to say throughout the rest of the ad, They need to know that either you've been in the same experience as they have before, or you're currently in that same experience right now. So what does that actually look like? A good version would be this one here. So this first picture is from when my hair loss was at its worst. I almost deleted the picture. I was so upset about it, but I decided to keep it so that someday it would be a before photo. Now, what does this do? It builds a deep connection on a private problem that most people would never show publicly. They're not really going to show a before picture when they're at their worst possible state around their biggest insecurity. So it sets the frame that this is a real lived story, and it opens up a curiosity loop that then carries her into the agitation. So keep this good one in mind. And now we're going to say the same message, but in a very surface level way. And this would be a bad lead. And the bad one would be, so many women deal with this, and I wanted to share my experience. Now you can see the difference in the depth of these two here. This one builds more trust. You know, they're going to be thinking, wow, like she's actually been through this before. Whereas this is just vague. It doesn't build anything on a deep emotional level. Now let's look at solution aware. So their question is usually, why should I believe this is any different? So remember, they've been burned before. They are skeptical. They don't know what solution to go for. Now the lead here needs to validate their skepticism before trying to change their mind. You can't go straight into your mechanism. Now, a good one is, I did 6 rounds of laser that left me with dark patches. Tried 2 hair inhibitor serums off Amazon with hundreds of 5-star reviews. Neither did a thing. 4 months on Vanica, which is basically a topical treatment for unwanted facial hair, until my skin started burning so bad I had to stop. So yeah, I wasn't rushing to try something else either. So you can see, like, super relatable as well. Again, like, this was pulled from research docs that we already curated. So I put all of this into Claude. You know, you can see that it's actually pulling out the exact products that a lot of my avatar have already tried before. You know, I did 6 rounds of laser that left me with dark patches. Again, from our research, we found out that laser can actually give people really bad hyperpigmentation, leave dark marks on their skin. So again, like, we're going a lot deeper into this. Now, this essentially mirrors exact internal objections back to the prospect, which earns the right to explain why this time is different. And this is what the mechanism will do later on in our ad. Now, a bad one, which I would say this is what a lot of people build within their scripts, is literally just something like, I found something that works for facial hair. Or they'll say something like, tried serums, face peels, and spent thousands on dermatologist appointments, but nothing worked. You know, something really cookie cutter. You can just tell straight away that AI has just spat it out with pretty much no guidance whatsoever. And it basically sounds like every ad they've already scrolled past or already been burned by. And again, like, when we talk about that ad guard, the guard goes up instantly. And as I mentioned before, a lot of this is subconscious, because if you're basically following a similar structure to what a lot of ads typically do, because a lot of people, or most people, don't actually know how to write good ads, then subconsciously their guard is going up. Now let's look at product aware finally. So their question is, give me a reason to finally buy. Remember, they know your product, they just haven't pulled the trigger yet. So the lead should be direct. She doesn't need empathy or education. She's not in problem aware or solution aware. She just needs proof and validation that she should actually finally pull the trigger on this product. So a good one would be, I've been using this for 11 weeks now, and I want to show you something I wasn't expecting. So something I wasn't expecting does a lot of the heavy lifting here. It implies a result that surprised even like the speaker or whoever the UGC person is within the ad. It creates curiosity in someone who already knows the product but hasn't actually pulled the trigger and committed. And a bad one would be, let me tell you about my journey with Cyberglow. Just generic, as I said, cookie cutter, low curiosity. Here we have, something I wasn't expecting. She's curious. What is that? And she already knows the product but hasn't bought yet, needs a strong reason on why. So you can just, again, tell the difference here that this is just generic, no curiosity. They'll probably just drop off at that point. Now, one thing to note is the line between the lead and the agitation isn't always rigid. Some copy does both at the same time. What matters is the actual sequence. So again, think of the connecting bridge here. Has the prospect been given enough trust to receive what comes next? If yes, you're in agitation. If that work hasn't been done yet, the copy is doing the lead's job. So essentially, you just need to make sure that you've built that connecting bridge of trust before we go into this next stage, which is going to be actually going into deep agitation and actually increasing that emotional intensity as well. Okay, so what I have done is I have built out this table to show you side-by-side examples of what is good and what is bad. And this actually came from, we'll go into a full example in a second, but it came from a common question that I get, which is how do you actually write good copy that goes deep and that actually can get good hold rates and build ads at scale? And when I started reviewing a lot of scripts, I started to realize, similar to these bad examples here, that a lot of the copy that people are writing, they're taking what AI is giving it and literally not enhancing it or doing anything to it, and it's just cookie cutter. So let's go through these cookie cutter examples versus what I would consider as good copy. So we have surface level agitation versus deep agitation. So first line here, surface level, I was struggling with facial hair for years, versus for over a decade, I set my alarm for 4:50 a.m. Not to work out, but to pluck my own chin before my husband woke up. A decade of the same mirror, same tweezers, same voice in my head. Normal women don't have to do this. So instead of just making the statement that you were struggling with it for years, you're actually going into lived experiences, which if you think of the person who's actually watching this ad, you're essentially speaking what they're going through right now. So yes, the person watching the ad, if you were to say this, they're also struggling with facial hair for years, but this is what cuts deep. This is what actually gets them feeling, it sounds a bit bad, but it's what gets them feeling shit about themselves. Because if you can get someone feeling really shit about themselves in your ad, then that's essentially what is going to give them actual reasoning to want to make a change. Now, it's not just a case of making someone really shit within their ad, it's how that actually progresses through the ad, which we'll get onto as well. You want to make someone feel shit, but then you want someone to leave the ad actually feeling hope and a sense of relief. Now, I tried laser creams, at-home IPLs, but nothing worked. Again, this is the most common generic bullshit that people build within their scripts versus, again, lived experiences. And this is all going to relate back to storytelling. The best ads are great at storytelling. So let's look at the deep agitation. Laser was supposed to be the one that finally worked. I saved up $1,200, drove 40 miles each way for 6 sessions, and it didn't just fail, it left dark patches all over my chin that weren't there before. So now I've had the hair and the hyperpigmentation, 2 problems instead of 1. And I remember looking in the mirror that night thinking, I just want something that helps me without making it worse. That's all I'm asking for. And again, we've extracted all of this out of our research documents, so we're actually speaking the exact lived experiences and the exact terminologies and everything that our avatar is using. They're writing on TikTok comments, they're writing on Reddit. Everything is super, super relatable, and we're building up all of this trust before we actually go into our product. So next bad one, it was completely ruining my confidence and any intimate moments I had. Again, from the research video, if you've watched it, we know that this was a big issue that people were having, completely ruining their confidence, didn't want to get intimate with their partners, versus lived experience. He never reached over to touch my face, or he reached over to touch my face and I flinched. Not because I didn't want him close, I did. But all I could think was, can he feel it? Does he know? I tell people I don't like my face being touched. That's the lie I use. The truth is, I'm terrified that the guy I love is going to run his hand across my jaw and realize I've been hiding this from him the entire time. Again, back to our research, people were getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, shaving, plucking their chin because they don't want their partner, or they don't want to reveal to their partner like how bad their facial hair actually looks. So just building more and more agitation. You can see how this is progressing through. I felt stuck and hopeless. No one understand the pain I was in. Versus, I finally told my sister, sat her down and said, I need you to understand, this is ruining my life. She looked at me and said, have you tried spearmint tea? Again, like super common thing that people are saying that you should try for facial hair. I saw something on TikTok. That's the last time I talked to anyone about it. Unless you've stood in front of that mirror at 6 a.m. shaving your own face before your partner wakes up, you will never understand what this feels like. So yeah, big difference there between these. Now, depending on the type of ad that you're running, this is a little bit of like longer form copy. Like this would be mainly for, let's say, like a mini VSL. But even like if you're writing shorter form ads as well, like 30 seconds, you still need to be going deeper than just making statements. You know, you need to be relating back to the avatar. And I think the thing that I want to make clear in your head is trust. All of this here that you're reading, all of this is just trust building, because no one is going to purchase from your ad if trust hasn't been built. Everything, the whole foundation is built of trust. We're not Gymshark, we're not Rode, you know, we're not any of these big brands who are working with a bunch of influencers, PR, you know, there's fucking so much social proof out there. 9 times out of 10, no one has heard of your brand before. No one has been on your website before. You're completely cold. They have zero reason to trust you. So you need to earn trust as quick, as fast, and as effective as you possibly can, which is what all of this actually does, because it resonates with them. They feel understood. And obviously that's just one part of it, because yes, you need to build that trust with them initially, but then you also then need to make them trust your product, your solution, and give them a reason to actually buy. But this stage here is what is going to actually make the mechanism, make the product introduction, the solution feel actually welcomed. So you're not just shoving it down their face, you know, it's a natural next step. Now, let's look at a surface versus deep copy in real script writing. So when writing agitation, pressure test your script with these questions. And we're going to go into some examples after this, but am I describing the problem or replaying a moment from their life? Does this reveal something they don't usually admit out loud? Have I shown the emotional cost of failed attempts? Does the solution arrive as a relief or as an ad? Would this sound believable if there was no product mentioned at all? And is the emotional weight heavier at second 40 or 50, whatever that may be, than it was at second 10? You need to increase the intensity. So you need to be like increasing the pressure throughout the ad, the pressure that they need to do something about it. But then remember, at the end of the ad, or as you start to pivot into your solution, you should start to make them feel a bit of relief. And actually, like a small tip that I want to give you that I've not heard anyone speaking about is, this is all, again, on the basis mainly around a product-aware ad or an unaware ad, but all of this that I'm teaching you now is still applicable to any script that you're writing. But a lot of the time, especially when we're in product-aware, what we'll do is, when we are in the deep agitation stage, is the actual background music that you have within your ad. So what we like to do is, when you're in deep agitation, that's when you have like more of a dramatic background music. And then when you make that pivot into the mechanism and solution, that's when actually we go into more like happier music, relief. They feel a sense of joy, because that's when we're almost making them do a 180. And yes, we've agitated the fuck out of you right now. You probably feel really shit about yourself, but don't worry, like there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this is it. Now, here's two examples that I've written. Both of these are scripts from what would be the same ad concept. So we'll look at the surface level copy first. And this is like the hook and the lead and the agitation. So we don't go into the mechanism in these examples. We'll go into that later. So I've struggled with PCOS, hair loss, for over 3 years. Seeing my scalp where there used to be hair was heartbreaking. I tried expensive treatments, supplements, a low-carb diet, but nothing worked. Then I found this hormonal balance supplement whilst desperately scrolling through Reddit. Within 3 months, I started noticing new hair growth, hair that I've never seen before. So that would be what I would consider being as surface level. Now, to be honest with you, like now that I'm reading this back, this I think is still, it's not terrible. It's still probably better than a lot of the ads that I review. But now we're going to go into the good example. And this is going to be, again, the same messaging, but you'll see how the structure, the storytelling, the agitation is completely different, especially around lived experiences. And also we build in fear as well. Like what can potentially happen if you don't take action? So here is the deep copy. Here, and one thing that actually, before we get onto this, that I want to say is when you're reading through this, we'll get onto this later on in the lesson, but look how I stack curiosity loops. So I'm always giving them a reason to essentially listen to the next section of the ad. So here's the deep copy. Hair loss for PCOS is one of the most distressing symptoms, so I wanted to give you some hope. The first picture is from when my hair loss was at its worst. I almost deleted the picture. I was so upset about it. But I decided to keep it so that someday it would be a before photo. This picture was taken yesterday, about 3 months into completely changing my routine, and I'll share exactly what I did with you. As you can see, it's not all filled in yet, but is growing where it was previously completely bald and shiny. Seeing your scalp where your hair shouldn't can make it so tempting to reach for hormones or testosterone blockers, and I was stuck in this cycle for almost 5 years. It completely disrupted my estrogen balance and gave me fertility issues, which almost cost me my marriage. Day to day, I had low libido, fatigue, and the most insane mood changes. What finally worked wasn't more meds or another quick fix. It was learning how to support my hormones and scalp properly. Here's exactly what I did. So, same product, same messaging, same ad concept, but look how much more trust, but also agitation has been built within this first half of the script versus this here. Very vague, doesn't talk about lived experiences, doesn't really talk about what can go wrong if you continue to use X, Y, and Z solutions. Whereas this here, very, very strong copy. So let's break it down. So, surface copy. I struggled with hair loss for years. Seeing my scalp was heartbreaking. The deep copy version, I almost deleted the picture. I was so upset about it. Seeing your scalp where it was bald, was shiny and bald. So deep copy talks into specific lived moments, are harder to mentally dismiss and deeply resonate. Like everything that she's probably going through right here, the avatar is going through, you can't ignore that. Like it's deep stuff. Next, it uses shame and identity threat, not just surface level frustration. So surface agitation, stay safe. It's talking about, it uses words like struggled, heartbreaking, desperately. Deep agitation goes where people don't usually talk publicly. So in that copy there, I wrote about fertility issues. Again, like you're building a lot of fear into people. Like no one wants to have issues with this. Avoiding intimacy, which again, like we know was a big downside or a big struggle that people had within our research. Marriage strain. Again, like no one wants to go through marriage strain. Feeling broken or abnormal. Again, from the research that I did, very, very common thing that people struggled with. Next, it shows the cost of failed solutions, not just that they have failed. The surface copy, I tried treatments, supplements, diets, nothing worked. It feels exactly like a generic ad, lacks the weight of actual experience, and is easily dismissed by a sophisticated buyer. The deep copy should go way deeper on the cost of the failure and call out specific products. So wasted time, money, emotional hope, side effects, new problems caused by old solutions, which you can see is what I did here. You know, it completely disrupted her estrogen balance and give her fertility issues. And we're talking about what are some of the most common ones people use, which is hormones or test blockers. Not just supplements, but instead, yeah, from research, be specific. So again, like I've said here, from research, be specific. Like use your research. So when you're actually writing your copy, have all of your research documents on another screen. Don't just rely on AI pulling out all of these terms that are in your context files, because sometimes it's going to miss. Like read through your script, look at your research. Can you extract more real lived experiences, products that people are using? Like try and build as much of that into your script as you possibly can so it actually feels believable and realistic. Now, the use of chain reactions, again, something that I think a lot of people that I don't hear them talk about. So in higher sophistication markets, which, as I said in that lesson, you're mainly going to be dealing with like level 3 to level 4 sophistication. You win by showing the chain reaction of failed solutions. So the weak chain would be, I took hormones and they didn't fix my hair, versus the scaling chain, a good chain, which would be, I reached for hormone blockers. That then transitions into, which triggered a massive estrogen imbalance, which led to fertility issues, which then leads on to, which put a strain on my marriage that we're still recovering from. So both saying the same thing, both basically saying that this product is ineffective, this is a failed solution, but this here isn't going into the actual consequences and the cost of failure, which I've said here, of that solution. And this is so fucking powerful. Yeah, I've actually put this in caps, much more powerful. And it's an easy way to devalidate other solutions and tease up perfectly to intro what your mechanism is going to be. Now next, builds and triggers emotions before. The common mistake is rushing into the solution, and I see a pattern of people just using problem solution result or problem agitation solution result. No storytelling, no emotional build. You can see how I'm really, like, a lot of this is storytelling versus the example of problem, lived experience, emotional weight, recognition, curiosity, then solution. Now, there's different frameworks that you're going to use depending on the type of ad. You know, if you are, let's say, like an authority figure using like an AI avatar, maybe you're not going to be talking about lived experiences as much. You're going to be coming from more of like an educational point of view, but you're still going to be building in a lot of these principles. You're still going to be doing recognition, so they actually trust what you're saying. You're still going to be talking about lived experiences in regards to what they're going through. You're still going to be building curiosity within your scripts. It's just more depth into what you're actually writing. Now, remember, how much emotion you build and which emotions you lean into change based on the stage of awareness that you're building your ad around. Again, back to the awareness levels, you can see how this is so important. Now, examples here, problem aware equals deep agitation. So frustration, failed attempts, self-blame, and isolation, long enough for them to feel deeply understood. They need to feel understood before they can transition. Solution aware is essentially just rebuilding that belief that has already been burned from them trying these other solutions that have led on to the high estrogen, that have led on to the fertility issues. So skepticism, confusion, you're validating past attempts, you're explaining failure without blame, and you're creating logical relief. And then, as I said, also building in the cost of failure into there as well. And this has to be more clarity-driven emotion that leads to curiosity. So you're giving them clarity, you're educating them on why nothing has worked. Then you're going to build that curiosity in there, so that is going to lead perfectly onto what your mechanism and your solution is. Now, the next thing is dumb down scripts that use the exact avatar language. So if you read back onto that script, again, lesson document is below. I didn't use any buzzwords or jargon in the good copy. Stayed away from the overused AI lingo. This honestly riles me up. When people have like, it's a game changer, breakthrough, basically just stuff that Claude and ChatGPT just spit out. Like, try and remove all of that out of your scripts. And this is where your refinements come into play. Like maybe on your first bit of copy that gets produced, it might have this, and then you go through it, refine it, just remove it out. Like, this is where the context files from your research do a lot of the heavy lifting, and why we spend hours on Reddit, TikTok, YouTube comments, etc. So you will, using all of the context files that I've given to you guys, you will find that you will not really get this AI lingo, but still sometimes you will. So just make sure that you're going back through it and removing it out. Over-engineered scripts, so like when people go into all these like scientific terms, etc., that can backfire if it's not easily digestible or it sounds unrealistic. So your avatar trusts the language that they use. The more that you can use this in your scripts, the stronger your copy will be. And again, like going back into all of this copy, even going back into the deep agitation, you can see that I am getting a lot more specific using all of the research documents that I have. And you can see how this all is starting to tie together now. You can't get to the point of writing good copy without having actually done the research. Okay, so where was I? Here we go. So let's now move on to the next section. Or the next section of this, which is the mechanism and solution is welcomed. So as I told you to look out for before I started reading the good copy, there's a continuous use of curiosity loops. This drives up your hold rate as you're consistently giving the viewer a reason to keep watching the ad. And you're using these to gradually move towards the mechanism in a much more natural way. So let's break down some of the curiosity loops that I used. First of all, this was actually in the hook. So I wanted to give you some hope. Signals relevance and emotional intent. Viewer won't see it as an ad, but more of a shared experience. And also they're going to look at it like, okay, look, this is actually helpful for me. Like there's a reason to keep watching this. I'm actually going to extract some value from this video. I'll share exactly what I did with you. Not selling, again, like just offering them clarity and value. What finally worked wasn't more meds or another quick fix. Eliminates obvious solutions and resets expectations. This reframes the problem. As people were maybe in the first stage of that copy, they might almost be thinking, okay, like I know what they're going to go into. But this is almost like breaking a common belief. What finally worked wasn't more meds or another quick fix. Okay, now I'm hooked again. If it wasn't that, then what is it? It was learning how to support my hormones and scalp properly. Here's exactly what I did. So this is where I'm almost teeing up, where I'm going to go into the mechanism. And you can see I've written here, the mechanism arrives as a relief. It's the natural next step, and it's not forced. So it's taken me a lot of work to actually build up to this point. But like the work has to be done. If you actually spend the time building out a script and actually building it in a way where it's following a similar format to this, and you're building in all of these principles, you're going to just see much higher win rates within your ads. I would much rather spend a full day perfecting one script that is going to be a killer that can handle 10, 20K, whatever the budget may be per day, or spend 6 figures per month on a single creative. You're going to get that by putting in the research and the work and really building this out in a systemized way that can actually scale and hold spend, versus me trying to write 5 of these in a day, which I'm telling you is very, very hard to do, especially if you're building a really, really strong top of funnel ad. Now, third section, we're going to start going into hooks now. Again, I think this is another common mistake that a lot of people are doing, which is how they're actually writing their hooks. I think a lot of people are stuck in 2024, like how to write hooks back then, where it's more clickbaity style hooks. But I've said here, hooks that don't feel like hooks. Like this is the key bit. Your hook shouldn't feel like a hook to the viewer, but you're still subconsciously hooking them in to the creative. So you don't want your hook to signal that a hard salesy ad is on the way. Again, the ad guard goes up from the start and retention usually drops off. People think the more aggressive or clickbaity the hooks are, the better. But this is the reason why a lot of people see a strong hook rates, but their hold rates tank. Again, one of the most common issues that people have. Oh, my CTR is great and my hook rate is good, but I'm at a 0.7 ROAS and the ad's not just converting. Well, it's because the rest of your creative is shit. You should always write your hooks in a way that lowers resistance enough to earn attention to go into the lead of your ad. Now, when we talk about clickbaity versus non-clickbaity, actually like writing a hook that has a lower hook rate but a much higher hold rate, I would rather that versus a hook rate that is really, really high but then a hold rate that is really, really low, because actually the hold rate is what's going to get people to buy. If you have a really strong hold rate and they're going through a much longer duration of your ad, then obviously as the more every single second that they watch, the warmer they are to making a purchase. If you think of it from like a scale of 1 to 10, if you have someone that goes through maybe 3 seconds of your ad, they're probably, or let's say 5 seconds of your ad, they're probably like a 2 out of 10 ready to purchase. If you have someone that goes through, let's say 70% of your ad, they're pretty much going to be up at like a 7 or 8 out of 10. So focus on retention versus just like clickbaiting people into your ad and then just having a high drop off. Now, some different examples and techniques that I use for my hooks. Now, honestly, this in itself could probably be a whole lesson, but again, this is just to give you like a high level overview on everything that I do with my script writing. So first of all is permission hooks. So these work well because they don't demand attention. The theory behind them is to lower the viewer's guard enough to let the story actually begin. So the example is the one that I actually already wrote in the good copy, which is hair loss for PCOS is one of the most distressing symptoms, so I wanted to give you some hope. So what do I do here? I acknowledge the problem over like exaggerating the problem so it feels super native. Again, the more native that your ads feel, the less that they're going to have this ad guard up. It shows empathy without any hard selling in it. It frames it as a shared experience, which again is building trust and that instant connection. And it gives the viewer emotional permission to keep watching. They now are like, okay, yeah, they're not saying this out loud, but subconsciously they're going to be thinking, okay, I want to find out what the answer is. What hope can you give me? I'm stuck right now. I've got no confidence. I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. It's like, I need this right now. So they're not going to go and flick down onto the next Instagram post or keep scrolling on Facebook. You've now built that curiosity that they're going to actually get some value out of this. Now, the weak version, which is basically signaling that it's an ad right away, is struggling with PCOS hair loss. This changed everything. Again, cookie cutter, ad guard goes up. You're really not letting them know that they're going to get much value out of this. Like, they've heard claims like this before. Like, they're probably just thinking, oh yeah, they're going to tell me to go on like hormone blockers, X, Y, and Z. Like it's not coming from, this almost comes from the perspective of like a consultation. Like I'm actually here to help you. This almost comes from the angle that I'm going to be sold to, which makes a massive difference. Now, the next one is curiosity hooks. So these crush because they open a loop the viewer's brain needs to close. Like we're pretty much wired that way. If we have like a carrot that's been dangled in front of us, like with information, like we need to know what the next step is. We need to know the answer to things. Like it's just how the human brain works. The brain treats an unanswered question like an incomplete task. It creates low-level tension that can only be resolved by watching more. So a good example of that would be, I almost deleted this photo, but I decided to keep it so that someday it would be a before photo. Now, I used that further into my copy, but that in itself as well could almost be a hook. Because if you think of that line of text there, that in itself could be a hook, but if you match that with a good visual as well, which obviously you would do, I almost deleted this as a photo. And if you show like a before photo of someone covered in facial hair, straight away visually, you know, you're connecting with your avatar there because they're also sitting watching that ad probably with the same on their face, or they've been up at like 6 a.m. that morning, like shaving and plucking it off. So this could be another really, really good hook because it implies a transformation happened, but it doesn't say what. So again, like big curiosity there. You know, I almost deleted this photo, but I decided that someday it would be a before photo. Like, okay, now what happens next? What is the after photo they're engaged in? Before photo tells the viewer that there's an after and they have high curiosity to see it. No product, no claim, no selling signals, just a natural step into the story. Now, the weak version, which you're giving the payoff way too early here, there's no curiosity built there, there's no reason for them to keep watching, is here's my before and after using this PCOS hair growth supplement. The weak version closes the loop in the hook itself. The viewer already knows what happened, what the product is, and that this is an ad, all within one sentence. There's no reason to keep watching because the story has already been told. The strong version makes the viewer lean in, and she has no reason to essentially stay and find out. Next type of hook is a diagnostic/reframe hook. So these are more direct. They reframe the viewer's understanding of the problem in a single sentence, and it works well as the rest of the ad feels like an explanation they've been waiting for. So again, let's look at a good example of this. So if your facial hair grows back thicker, no matter what you do, it's not because you're doing something wrong. Your follicles are receiving a hormonal signal that shaving, waxing, and laser were never designed to stop. So this would be a great solution-aware hook if you were targeting that solution awareness stage. So it interrupts the self-blame loop immediately. She's been thinking, why can't I fix this? You're essentially going to give her the answer to that. It reframes the cause of the problem / breaks common beliefs the avatar has. It removes the shame from the viewer. And it also opens up a curiosity loop as well at the same time, which is, what is the signal and how do I actually stop it? Even though the language is blunt, it doesn't come across as a hard sell and makes her feel a sign of relief and hope. It's also positioned to offer a payback for the customer and a reason to keep watching. So you can see how all of this basically ties into retention. You know, how can you build your hook in a way that it's not coming across as like a hard salesy ad, but it's actually coming across as giving the viewer value to actually keep watching the ad. Retention, retention, retention. Now, the weak version of that would be, and again, such a common hook that people use, you know, are you tired of acne? Here's why nothing has worked. Tired of facial hair growing back? Here's why nothing has worked. It touches on frustration, but doesn't shift her understanding of why it's happening. She already knows that nothing has worked, and that's not new information. The strong version gives her a new explanation for an old problem. That's the difference between reminding someone that they're stuck and showing them the door they didn't know was there, which is going to be the solution that you actually build into the ad. Your product, essentially. And as I said, these work very well for solution and product-aware ads. Okay, so now let's move on to curiosity loops. So I've alluded to them a few times throughout this lesson so far, but just wanted to go a little bit deeper into them as well. So as I said here, want to make curiosity loops abundantly clear in your mind, as you need to be mastering these and building them into your scripts if you want to have high retention. Now, what essentially is a curiosity loop? A curiosity loop is an open information gap in the viewer's mind that can only be closed by continuing to watch. If there's no open loops, watch time and hold rates drop. You're not giving people a reason to stay. Now I put here, go watch some of Mr. Beast's YouTube videos. Guy is the GOAT of creating loops. Now obviously it's not going to be relevant to ecom, but if you actually go and watch some of Mr. Beast's YouTube videos, now I did this just to study some of his content a few years ago, and he uses curiosity loops all the time. He's so focused on retention, and some of these top YouTubers, they're just masters at retention because watch time is absolutely everything for them. So it's not just ad creatives, it's any type of really good content. Always use these. Even if you go on Calodata and you go and look at the best affiliates on Calodata, the ones who are printing 100, 200, 300k per month in commissions, watch their content. They're always using curiosity loops. On Calodata, you can basically follow or save a creator. I go on Calodata, I go and find affiliates that are absolutely crushing it, the ones who are printing, the top 1%. I save or I follow all of them. So now I have a list of them, and I'll just go and look at their content. What retention tactics are they using? What sort of hooks are they using? And you can reverse it a lot. You can reverse engineer a lot of what they're doing, because that's all they're focused on. When we're doing ecom, we're focused on so many different arms of the business. But if you take a top affiliate on TikTok Shop, every single day when they wake up, it's how can I make a banger piece of content that has high retention and also has high conversion. They're some of the best people to learn from. So it's all about building tension, and tension comes from something that is left unfinished that they need the answer to. Now, how do you actually integrate curiosity loops into your creatives? Now, here's a few different ways, again, high level approach. First one is to open an incomplete thought, which we've said here. You're basically opening an information gap. Say something that raises a question without answering it. So an example of that would be, I thought I was just bloated, but it was something way worse. Super simple, just one line. But the thought has to be genuinely incomplete. If it's open/closed in the same sentence, which we saw on one of the hooks that I did, then there's no tension left. There's no reason to keep on watching. So what would that look like? A bad version would be, I thought it was bloating, but it turned out to be a gut health issue I fixed with a supplement. Again, you're basically closing the loop in the same sentence. Retention just dies off. Second one is to withhold the solution. Tell a viewer you have an answer, but don't give it yet, which, again, I did. What finally worked wasn't more meds or another quick fix. Eliminates the obvious answers and resets expectations. They now need to know what it is, and they'll keep watching to find out. And the third one is tease the cause. So give them enough to stay curious. So again, from my good copy that I wrote, there's a hormonal signal that nothing I was using was designed to interrupt. She now knows there's a signal. She doesn't know what interrupts it. And that gap carries her straight into the mechanism. So again, I was saying actually building this in a way that the mechanism is welcomed. You can see how that does that there. And what you can do is you can start to stack these as well. It's not just a case of you only have one open loop or one curiosity loop built into your scripts. If you go back and look at the good copy that I wrote before, leading up into the mechanism, I was actually stacking them on top of each other. And that's how you get even better retention. Now, how do you actually close open loops? When a loop is opened, the brain registers it as an unfinished task. And remember, incomplete tasks are far more, and we remember incomplete tasks far more than completed ones. If you wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning you wake up, you're not necessarily thinking about the tasks that you did yesterday. You're thinking about the tasks that you didn't do yesterday that you still have to finish today. Like, it just subconsciously registers in your brain so much more than things that you've already completed. And that's why open loops hold attention so well. The best scripts close loops in two major layers. The mechanism closes the information gap. They now understand what the solution is and why it works. And the results close the emotional gap. They now feel the weight of the problem lift. And remember, I was talking about how you need to build relief into your scripts. And you'll kind of see, I think we go into some, when we go into the mechanism, you'll see how I do this. If you close with information only, they understand the product, but don't have impulse to act and actually purchase from the ad. If you close with emotion only, they only feel something, but don't understand why your product is the answer. You need both of these. Now, let's progress on to mechanisms, and you'll kind of see how I've built that into the mechanism introduction. So, you should have already been through my lesson on mechanisms, and now it's about bringing it all together in your scripts. So you should have your mechanism, you should have used like the mechanism finder prompt, like everything is ready to deploy into your scripts by this point. Now, I did want to say, not all of your ad concepts need to include a mechanism. As you already know, this is dependent on the awareness and sophistication level you are targeting. I'm putting more of a focus on problem and solution aware ads in this doc, and this is where most of your winning ads that can handle high spend will land. As I said, most of my like high spending ads, they're mainly in problem aware, also solution aware. You can have some really high scalable ads in there as well. Remember, if you've done a good job of your script up until this point, the mechanism and solution will feel welcome, not forced. Now it's time to actually execute it properly. The most common thing that I see is people writing generic BS product/mechanism intros. Again, like I want to give you guys like a crystal clear picture of what's good and what's bad, like throughout this whole lesson. So again, like when we go into mechanisms, let's look at some good and bad examples so you know what not to do, but what actually to execute on. Now, let's lead on from, so this will be like where we're building it on from. Unless you've stood in front of that mirror at 6 a.m. shaving your own face before your partner wakes up, you will never understand what this feels like. So the viewer is fully agitated, she feels understood, and she's emotionally invested. Now the bad one would be, and again, super fucking common that people do, that's when I found Cyproglow Afterglow oil. It uses Cyperus rotundus, which is clinically proven to reduce hair growth. It's been used for thousands of years in ancient Egypt. Now, even when I say that out loud, like I'd probably say like 90% of people will jump into like their product intro exactly like that. Now, it's not to say it doesn't work. I see ads on Ad Library that do have copy like this, and it does work, but like it's not going to be an ad that is actually going to be able to handle high scale and actually be a fucking big winning ad in your ad account. That's going to get you to whatever your target might be, million a month, 2 million a month. If you lead with an intro like this, you've shot yourself in the foot. It instantly comes across as inauthentic, and everything that you've built up until this point collapses. Like all of that good work has basically gone to shit. Now, a lot of what I have done here is theory from the mechanism lesson. So a lot of this, if you have been through the mechanism lesson, is going to make sense to you, you know, moving the blame away from the customer, etc. So a good version here is blame shift mechanism product. So remember, this is our bad one, this is our good one. Here's what I didn't understand for over a decade. Every time I shaved or waxed or lasered, I was only removing the hair. I wasn't doing anything about why my body kept producing it. There's a hormonal signal that tells your follicles to keep producing thicker, darker hair, and nothing I was using was designed to interrupt that signal. Shaving cuts the hair, waxing pulls it off, laser burns it, but the signal, it's still running. That's why I always grew back. The only thing that finally changed it was an oil made from a plant extract called Cyperus rotundus. It doesn't remove the hair, It slows the signal that tells your body to keep making it. It's been clinically tested head to head against laser for hair reduction, and it won. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. Not all Cyperus rotundus oil is the same. Most of the bottles you'll find on Amazon are diluted with cheap filler oils. Barely any of the active compound is actually in there. And even the ones that are pure have a different problem. Without the right carrier oil, the actives just sit on top of your skin and evaporate. They never reach the follicle, so you're applying the right ingredient, but it's not getting to the right place. My dermatologist was actually the one who recommended Cyperglow specifically. She says it's one of the only formulations she's seen that uses jojoba-based carrier, which mimics your skin's natural oil. So the actives are already transported down into the follicle where their hormone signal lives. That's the difference between rubbing something on your skin and hoping, and actually getting it to where it needs to go. About 3 weeks in, I ran my hand across my chin and something was different. The hair was softer, thinner, like it was giving up. By month 2, I went from plucking every single morning to maybe once or twice a week. And for the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and didn't immediately look away. Now, fuck me, that's good copy. And when you compare it to what probably a lot of you guys are doing, where you go straight in to the product, you're not really actually explaining the mechanism to them as well. Like, you're cutting you're shooting yourself in your foot. Like, you can see I've literally taken them on a journey through here. Super, super in depth, but at the same time, it's so easy to understand. I'm not going in heavily with scientific terms. Like, anyone could understand, anyone could read this and understand it. So there's a lot there, so let's actually work through it and what actually makes that great copy and a great mechanism, solution, product introduction, whatever you want to call it. First of all, nobody told me this for over a decade. Shifting blame away from the prospect, she wasn't wrong. She had just been given the wrong information. Again, from the mechanism lesson, you'll know this is key with mechanisms. Shifting it actually away from the customer, it's not your fault. You just had the wrong information. Every time I shaved or waxed or lasered, I was only removing the hair. It's specific to what she has already tried, so it's resonating on a deep level. I can't remember which lesson it was that I did, but I think I said in one video, you basically, and this goes for all of the script, not just like the mechanism bit that we're focused on now, you basically want your viewer to watch your ad and think, fuck me, this is the first time that I actually feel like someone is speaking directly to me. Like, they actually understand everything that I go through, everything that I've tried, how this is affecting my life. Like, they just want to feel that understood on the deepest possible level. Now, back to the breakdown. There's a hormonal signal that tells your follicles to keep producing thicker, darker hair. So it's a problem reframe. It provides new information on why she has been stuck. And she'll now be asking, okay, but how can I fix this? So what is this? It's a curiosity loop. Shaving cuts the hair, waxing pulls it out, laser burns it, but the signal, it's still running. Stacks every past solution against the new understanding, once again shifting blame away from the customer. The only thing that finally changed it was an oil made from a plant extract called Cyperus rotundus. So this is where I go into the product intro, but notice how I'm not saying it's from Cyperglow or anything. I'm not saying go and shop this here. It's ingredient first, not product. Educating what it actually is before we tell her who sells it and where to buy it from. It doesn't remove the hair. It slows the signal that tells your body to keep making it. So this is the new explanation for how the problem actually gets solved. You know, you're actually getting to the root cause. Everything before this was setting up why she's stuck. This is the first time she hears how to fix it. I remember, like, if you've been following along with this research and everything that I was doing, the biggest pain point is actually managing this hair. The daily plucking, the daily shaving. absolutely consuming their daily life, whereas now we're actually telling them, look, this actually gets to the root cause. This is actually going to stop the hair growing back. It's exactly what they want to hear. Clinically tested head-to-head against laser, and it won. Laser's the thing that already failed her in the agitation. Remember back on that table, we said about spending $1,200 that she saved up and driving 40 minutes each way, and it gave her hyperpigmentation. The $1,200 she saved up, hearing this ingredient beat it, flips the power of the dynamic. Not all Cypress rotundus oil is the same. Takes her from I need this to I need to get the right version of this ingredient. Now, what I'm basically doing here when I go into this section of the script, and I do this like with my brands all the time, is giving the customer no possible option to buy this product anywhere else. Because yeah, you can go on Amazon, you can go to another competitor, but you're not getting the same product. Like, you're not getting the proper product that is actually going to get to the root cause. And then I'm going to give them a reason why. You know, it's not just a claim, but there's actually an explanation behind that claim as well. I'm backing myself up. And you can see here, I go to uses a jojaba-based carrier so the actives are transported down into the follicle. So this is the delivery mechanism, and it explains why this version works when others don't. Most of them on the market are, like if you look on Amazon, they're 100% pure Cypress rotundus oils. So they don't actually have a carrier ingredient. And also because most of them are 100% pure, you can see that I also said here, and even the ones that are pure have a different problem without the right carrier. The actives just on top of your skin. And I've also then bashed Amazon, and I've said most of the bottles you'll find in Amazon are diluted with cheap filler oils. Barely any of the active compound is on there. So then I say, my dermatologist, so this is the actual, not product intro, but this is when I'm actually going into the brand intro. So my dermatologist recommended Cyproglow specifically. So the product is introed, or the brand is introed through an authority figure, dermatologist. So this adds validation. I ran my hand across my chin and something was different. So it's a physical moment, not a claim. It builds hope. Like as she's actually watching that, you know, she could be like touching her chin, like, fuck, like, okay, I definitely need to do something about this now. And again, like you're building that impulse into the ad. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and didn't immediately look away. Now, it'd be interesting to see how many of you guys actually would have noticed this, but it closes the emotional loop from the agitation. The mirror was the symbol of her pain. Now it's the symbol of her relief, which would have been all the way up here, where I said, for over a decade, I set my alarm for 5:40 a.m., not to work out, but to pluck my own chin before my husband woke up. A decade of the same mirror, same tweezers, same voice in my head. Normal women don't have to do this. So this is essentially speaking into their desired outcome. Okay, well, we've been through a lot now. So now we're going to go into the summary and checklist. So what have we actually covered? Because there has been a lot. And again, I'm going to attach this lesson document below the video so you can read back through it. So first of all, awareness levels. One concept equals one awareness level. It changes your script, your editing, your pacing, and remember the multi-awareness strategy across your ad account is how you scale. And actually, like if you come and look at Atreya here, so we're looking at this brand called Glove Beauty. If you go and look at any of the big brands that are killing it, which I recommend you do, like go and actually look at their ad library and identify, okay, like the difference between a solution aware, product aware, unaware ads, and you'll see that they're running all of these different concepts across all of these different awareness stages. So I've got 3 here. Like, let's look at this one. This is a solution aware ad. You need to stop using minoxidil on your scalp.
You need to stop using minoxidil on your scalp unless you want your hair to completely fall off. This chemical treatment is irritating and unsafe. It can cause dryness, flakiness, and irritation on your scalp. Throw it away and start using.
Okay, so that's a solution aware ad. Then we look at this one. which is a product aware ad.
This is what they don't tell you about the glove hair regrowth system.
Going straight into the product, this is what they don't tell you about the glove hair regrowth system. So if someone has actually been thinking about buying the product, maybe they've added the product to their cart, not bought yet, like they're going to be hooked into this.
It might have over 100,000 5-star reviews, but I'm here to tell you the truth.
Social proof stacking, etc. We've already reviewed solution aware ads, product aware ads, so we won't actually review these, but it's just to show you how every single brand is diverse in their concepts across these different stages. And now let's look at this problem aware ad. You know, you can see the hook there, how this woman got her hair from this.
How this woman got her hair from this to this. Rosemary oil helps to regrow hair.
And you can see that this is like a mini VSL, 3 minutes and 21 seconds. Every brand that is absolutely killing it, scaling on Meta, is doing exactly this. Now, next is leads and agitation. Remember, so the lead earns the stay after the hook earns the stop and aids in strong hold rates. Deep agitation replays lived moments, uses shame and identity threat, shows the cost of failed solutions through chain reactions, and builds emotional weight before the solution is ever introduced. Then we have our hooks. Remember to always try and lower the resistance, don't raise it. Permission hooks, curiosity hooks, and diagnostics hooks each serve different awareness levels and open up the ad without signaling a hard sell. Remember, we're trying to keep that ad guard down as much as possible. Mechanisms, the viewer should understand why your product works before she hears the product name. Shift blame and focus on why past solutions failed. Product is then welcomed. Mechanism is then welcomed, whatever that may be. And curiosity loops, open information gaps that can only be closed by continuing to watch. Open them early, stack them through the middle. Remember my good copy, I was stacking them constantly, and then close them with both information, which would be the mechanism, and emotion, which would be the results. So a lot there to cover. And the final checklist, so some additional things that I would like to leave you guys with when you are writing your scripts and you are actually reviewing them, is to read your scripts out loud. If it sounds like dog shit when you do this, then make adjustments. I don't think people really do that at all. Like every single script that I write or that I'm reviewing from my creative strategist, I'm actually like sitting here reading it out loud. Does it sound good? Does it roll off the tongue okay? Does it make sense? Does it sound like something that a normal person would say? Or does it sound like AI slop? Then you can make your adjustments based off that. Cut the fluff, go back over every line and ask if it's 100% needed. Does it support the rest of your script? You don't just want, if you want to have high retention, which obviously the whole point of this is that you do, is that you don't want any filler sentences in there. Like every single sentence should actually be working and doing something within the script. Make sure you are speaking the avatar's lingo throughout. Always default to their language. Super fucking important. And I've bolded here, use your raw research to pull out the words and phrases, which I've already told you to do. And then obviously go deep, like as deep as you possibly can on agitation. Make sure your emotional intensity progresses throughout the script. So remember, all the way back at the start, you know, your second 40 should feel a lot more emotionally intense than what your second 10 does. You know, there's actually a progression throughout your script. You build up that emotional intensity, you build up that agitation, and then you pivot into more hope and relief, which will be your mechanism and solution. And then finally, what I'd recommend you to do is, I mean, first of all, as I've said, your script should be easy to digest and understand. You can run it through Hemingway, and essentially you want it to be at like grade 6 to 7 reading level. So you can use this here, Hemingway app. You can upload your script into here. It's going to give you like a readability. So say this one here, for example, is grade 8. And then I'll also flag some things to change. Now, I mainly use this just for the readability. I don't really use the AI that it has built into it in regards to actually changing out sentences, because what this actually does is it starts to take away that human element. Remember, a lot of what we're writing, we've pulled from our raw context files. So you want to keep that in the ad. You want to keep it relatable. You want to keep it real. You don't want it to sound like robotic. So I would literally just use this for the readability. And yeah, that is essentially the psychology of writing winning ads. Now, as I said, I can pretty much, nothing in life is guaranteed, but I can pretty much 99.9% guarantee if you go and apply all of this into your script writing, and there'll be a lot of you guys who are most of you guys are going to be writing scripts, then, and a lot of you guys are probably struggling with actually making winning ads and writing good scripts. Just go and apply all of this, guys, and it's honestly going to fucking completely change the win rate that you see within your ads. Now, we'll go into some more examples in this module of me actually writing some scripts live, but you have to understand all of this as the fundamental. Like it's just the most important bit. It's the most important script writing lesson that you're going to watch. And you just need to cut out all of the other noise, just focus on this and go and execute. As I mentioned as well, use this as a context file as well. Upload this as a context file into Claude. And again, it's going to help you and the outputs that you get when you do come to writing more scripts. So hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.